All right, it's 7 o'clock. We have 7 council members with us this evening. Appreciate you guys attending. We'll go ahead and just get started right along with the agenda. There was a change to the agenda, so the ones that are printed out on your desk, it's not including the budget amendment discussion. However, I do want to just briefly talk about that. It has been removed from the agenda tonight, and I'll explain that a little bit. Last meeting, I wanted to make it more clear. I don't think I clearly explained about the Public Works facility and the process that we're working on right now with PCA, the architects. After the council meeting, I was talking to Councilman Meyer about this, and he's like, that's not how you explained it. So I wanted to properly explain this. So we're doing 2 things at the same time. So both procedures are being handled at the exact same time. So while we are doing the design concepts for the Silver Lake bathroom, we are also in the pre-design process for Public Works facility, the city building, as well as the fire department. So both are being worked on at the exact same time. The only reason that we were able to potentially move forward with the Silver Lake bathroom is the bathroom is at the process where we could start construction. We could get to that next stage in the process between now and June 30th when the fiscal year ends. So that's why we were thinking about taking that $500,000 that was originally allocated for all buildings in the capital budget and utilizing that money for the Silver Lake bathroom, because we knew that the Public Works facility, the city building, and in the fire department, it wasn't ever going to be to that construction phase between now and June 30th, whereas the Silver Lake bathroom is at that phase. That's why this came to be. Does that make sense? So both things are being worked on at the exact same time. It's just one is further along. It's a lot easier to get through a design concept with a restroom facility versus the Public Works facility, city building, and fire. Does that make sense? Any other questions?
No, I just wanted to make, I know there's a couple comments I wanted to make, on this piece. One, I appreciated having that understanding. I understand that, at least as it was explained to me, the design work had started for those other efforts as well, but we weren't going to be able to spend the money that we've allocated already in this fiscal year. So that was the desire, is to try to not push the monies off again to a next fiscal year, which makes sense. One of the other confusions that I had was why we were even doing the budget amendment, because as I understood it, we don't vote on that line item detail. When we look at it, the budget that we voted on that's attached to that ordinance is just those high level numbers, and those numbers wouldn't have changed. So it didn't make sense that we were going to, it was originally $4 million, and now it's $4 million. There was no change, so it didn't make sense to me why we were making that budget amendment. It did bring up an item though that I would like, and I know the Finance Committee is going to be having some discussions just around, I guess it's a request from me, but I would like to see us change how we budget for capital expenditures in the budget and what we vote on, and have those, instead of one large bucket of funds that's really at the discretion of the administration, to actually be a line item out. So if we're going to spend $1.2 million on roads, let's call it roads, $1.2 million. We're going to spend $500,000 on a public works building. I would like to see it at a more granular level for the capital expenditures, not necessarily getting to that level of detail on everything else, because I think that's just too hairy to try to amend those budgets every time there's a slight change. I know that even servers allocations and those things you don't necessarily know at the time you pass the budget, so you have a little flexibility with that. But the capital expenditures is one that I would like to see line itemed out on the budget attachment that we actually vote on. That's all I have on budget amendment, especially since I don't know where we'll go with the restrooms. I mean, with the money that's allocated, there's $500,000 there that is really in my opinion up to the administration to spend. In future, I'd like to have a little bit more controls over that, but that's not the position we're in right now.
And that was definitely an option. So we had $500,000 allocated for all buildings. It wasn't even specific for a building. And then we had $250,000 associated with a salt storage bin. Neither one of those is going to be utilized between now and June 30th if we don't move forward with any kind of restroom design. So technically, we didn't need to do a budget amendment. I agree with you. I was just trying to be super transparent and be extremely open with you guys about what we were wanting to spend the money on. So that was the motivation behind that. Any other questions on that process? And we'll have more information probably next meeting about the Silver Lake bathroom, Silver Lake Park, and the master plan for the parks. All right, we can continue on with the next item on the agenda, the surplus property, fire and EMS. Mr. Meyer.
This is one of the items that I saw on there, and I just, didn't necessarily understand why we would be getting rid of that vehicle if we could put, I think, I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but I think it was roughly $22,000 or whatever, and have, another ambulance with a new engine, new transmission that seemed it would be, provide better service to better options for, maintenance and other things to the city rather than just, dump it for, $3,000 to $5,000. So I don't know if there's a reason that we couldn't do that and potentially save, prolong the vehicles that we have in service today. I'll ask it just seems strange to me for us to see that for the first time and knowing that we just, bought in another item, so.
Well, that was the one that was going to be surplused already. It just, the transmission went out on it, so it's just being surplus early. The ambulance that's at East Station right now will turn into our spare, and then the new ambulance will be at District, or Central, and then the other one goes out to District 3 and rotates like normal.
But is there any reason not to make the investment and have an asset that's worth?
To have a fourth ambulance? If we want to have a fourth one, I guess. Yeah, that ambulance doesn't have the striker system built in, so it's still got the old cot system that has to be manually loaded.
When is the new Braun going to be ready? Do we know?
So that's a June target, so we've got 2 operational right now? So then if we have an issue with one of those, we've got 1 in service?
Kenton County has a spare that everybody in Kenton County is allowed to use. We just usually keep our own. We use it a couple times a year anyway with our own spare, but instead of putting the money into it, and we're just going to.
It's just one of those things that seems strange to me when we, we'll surplus things saying it has enough value for us to use in service here, and then it's in service at another department somewhere else. If there were truly, safety issues with that, I would have expected it would have just been scrapped.
It's not good enough for us, but it's good enough for somebody else that doesn't have a lot.
That's all I had.
Okay, so Tom?
So the striker system isn't in this one right now? What, is it still a self-loading cot or?
So is there any, of the council members that are here, is there any interest in altering our process moving forward and removing it from the surplus and adding additional funds to fix this ambulance and keep it within our fleet? Other than Mr.
me.
Meyer. I know there's not a tremendous amount of voices here, so I'm sorry.
So
Tom?
right now you get, I don't, it's up to you, man. I know you like going up there. So transmission, what else?
Motor.
Transmission, no striker system.
Yeah, that ambulance has 90,000 miles on it. Now, it has been replaced once. That's a 6.7 liter Ford that they had a lot of problem with oil leaking into the engine. So they're telling us at Hag Ford that the likelihood of having to replace that engine is very good. So that was $18,000. So we have that plus the transmission of $4,000 or $5,000, probably a crankcase added to that. So anywhere from $25,000 to get that operational, and that's before adding the power load system.
And then was there, when this broke down, going to lunch, patient, getting gas? Okay. All right, that's,
I've had several complaints on the smoking. That was just not a, they've since gone to a 7.4, I think. The 6.7 Ford gave them a lot of issues, and that's been, I mean, I printed out, what did we spend? About $6,000 a year annually on maintenance or whatever it was, somewhere around that mark. Yes, ma'am.
What do you want?
Our recommendation was to surplus it. And that was the recommendation before the transmission went out. So I understand, Councilmember Myers, we can put it in this, have a functional unit, but the plan has always been a 3-year, a 3-year, and a 3-year. It's a rotational plan. A new ambulance will stay at Station 1 for 3, goes to Station 2, or Station 3 for 3, goes into spare for 3. So in essence, we're getting 9 years lifespan out of that ambulance. So.
Yeah, the only reason, one of the reasons that I brought up, I know we're cash flush right now, right? I mean, and it's easy for us to just say spend, but I like to continue to think about things a little more frugally. And if we could change that to, you know, if we kept the 4th one and now it's, you know, 4 years versus 3, because, you know.
I think you start to see the maintenance issues occur with that. That's a 9-year lifespan
No,
for an
I understand that, but
ambulance.
as I looked at the maintenance log that Mr. Kramer shared, I mean, much of that appeared that it would be things that we're going to have on an ongoing basis anyway, you know, oil changes, tire rotations, new tires. You know, those things were included in there. There was, I know you made an adjustment because there was fuel included in that maintenance log, right? Because I would, you know, what kind of maintenance we getting done at UDF? But you know, it's those things. And when I looked, you know, when I looked at the log, there was 12,000 miles on that engine that was put in, you know, 4 or 5 years ago. So that's what kind of made me look at it and say, hey, you know, is there an opportunity for us to maybe not save money, you know, right now, but help extend the life of some of our other assets, which is why I was looking at it.
I understand.
Okay, of the council members that are here, if anybody is interested in removing this from surplus and putting additional funds into this ambulance, please raise your hand.
I'm going to flip that question around and ask if there's, ask to have the council member that's going to recognize themselves that wants to put this into surplus, since which is fine, you know, that's okay. I just want to make sure that as we're, you know, bringing forth, you know, legislation, that there's someone on council has endorsed that.
Okay, so we're going to put this back on surplus. Okay. Okay, we're good. That would be majority. Okay, any other questions on the ambulance before we move on? Okay. Next item on the agenda is surplus property, the police. This is K-9 ASCO. Mr. Meyer?
Yeah, I want to thank Mr. Kramer and Chief for helping, you know, pull some of these things together. What you have at your desk is a draft ordinance that kind of addresses some of those things, and then requiring that we allocate $2,000 per fiscal year budget to accommodate the care of those canines as they retire. I think the couple of the key pieces in there, you know, being the food, veterinary care, not necessarily limited to those things. I guess is that respite care while the K-9 handler is out of town. But then if there's also, you know, the policy that, you know, that it goes along with that if there is an issue on how to address that. And I think that was kept in the actual policy manual. Is that right, Matt?
What was that last part you said?
Just the policy, so the item in here, I think I actually misread it. If the handler is unwilling or unable to care for the retired, then the police department shall, prior to their retirement, find a suitable adoption solution.
Correct.
So I like having those things, put in here and make sure that we're providing the adequate care. So thanks for helping get this put together.
What's the timing on receipts currently for somebody that's doing city business or something like that? I see a 90-day in here. Is that usual and customary for us?
I don't know what our really customary, I mean, they're generally a lot quicker than that. We just don't want it to be a receipt for 6 months ago that they forgot to turn in for food, so that's, you think it needs to be smaller? Okay. 30 days? Yeah.
Gary, I have a question for you.
Just real quick, the only reason that I had actually gone over, that 90 day or over the 30 days was in the event that it was, and I'm not sure how all the veterinarians, handle things, but if for some reason they bill and you don't get the bill, the service was, 3 weeks ago, just to allow time for, when those bills actually come in, so.
And I'm just looking at it from a standpoint, having worked with a bunch of CPAs, they get kind of twitchy after
They do.
30 days.
Yes, ma'am.
So I have a question about the dollar amount, because the dollar amount that Mr. Meyer, or Mr. Kramer had expressed to you was $1,100 that it takes per year for the maintenance. He had moved it up to $1,500, and you moved it to $2,000. I wanted to understand what was the additional money for?
Yeah, one of the reasons that I was thinking about that, just that a little bit of extra money, is if there's a larger than normal vet bill. So something that, let's say it's a $500 and I'm at the end of that life cycle, to accommodate some of the little bit larger vet bills rather than saying, okay, hey, I can't afford to pay the $400, we're just gonna put the animal down, when you could spend $500 or a little bit of extra money and the dog could still have a decent quality of life, so.
I gotcha. So this is not, so he would submit the expenses for the month and then be reimbursed up to $2,000 for the year? Is that how I'm reading this?
That's correct.
Okay, so it's not necessarily like,
It's not a stipend.
Stipend,
No,
okay.
this is just accommodating those additional expenses.
so it could be less.
It could, absolutely could be less per year.
I understand. I just wanted to make sure that I understood that it was not broken out over a monthly, and it could, in theory, be less than, it could be 1,100, it could be 1,500.
Yeah, one thing to point out is the current dog that's getting retired at ASCO gets free food, but not all canines can handle that. So his cost will actually be probably lower, but we wanted to make this ordinance to apply to all dogs in the future, so that's why we added in the food. So ASCO is actually a little bit cheaper, but Bodo is a little more particular and can't eat the free food.
So, actually, one of the officers could come up, I'd like to ask them, because I think right now, currently, my understanding, it's $1,500 per active dog. However, that's with the food being donated. Is that what you just said, Matt? Because I was ignoring everything you said.
It's 1,100,
All right.
and that's including the food.
Okay, I just want to make sure I was ignoring you. Okay. So so it's 1,100 per year per dog, or?
Yeah,
That's what they were estimating, so
Yeah.
I've got it in front of me.
yeah, this
what you wanted to talk
year, in this upcoming budget year for both dogs, we're gonna ask for 3,000 total, 1,500 apiece.
And that's with the donated food, correct?
Correct.
So no food cost in there for us.
Right.
Okay, that's what he was saying. That's what Matt was saying.
Currently,
Correct.
right.
What's the lifespan after retirement?
2 years, give or take.
And Chad would have the option to pay the difference, right?
Absolutely.
That decision is not made by the department, that's made by the handler, correct?
What was the
Like
question?
if it costs $3,000 and he wants to, he's permitted to do so. It's not at you guys' discretion, it's
Correct.
his animal, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So, Chief, you currently have a policy as it relates to this, right?
As, in reference to,
In reference to how we handle canine dogs?
correct.
Okay. So I guess my question, Mr. Meyer, since you poked at us a little bit through the budget amendment when we're trying to be transparent, why do we need to codify a current policy? Like, why would we create legislation? To me, it almost seems like this is an administrative function.
No,
Like
but
how
it-
we handle retired dogs, and I'm just
Maybe-
curious.
Maybe the
I'm
handling
really
is,
just
but I want
curious.
to, but if we're able to, I'm looking at it to force and make sure that we are providing adequate funding for that. So if for some reason you're cutting the budget and all of a sudden you decide, hey, we're just going to cut that down to $1,000 and, those dogs are not properly taken care of, I wanted to force the situation and
Okay.
make sure that the funding would be there at all times.
Understand. But theoretically, couldn't the legislative body do that through the budget process?
With the way we budget, no. I mean, if we look at it right now, there's a 4 million, or I don't know, I'm trying to think, I always get the fire and the police, but, let's call it $4 million budgeted for the police department, and that's what we vote on is the $4 million. We don't vote on this, the 400 items that make up that $4 million, and this puts a little bit more restriction around, what that is.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is the Community Achievement Scholarship. Mr. Meyer?
Yeah, I've shared a draft of that as well. Just, I guess, two real changes in here. One, Sherry had asked that we move that to during the month of May, that we're presenting that scholarship, just to allow for more time, and I'll ask Ms. Hoffman if she wants to add anything further to that. The other thing that was changed in here was bringing that money up to $2,500. I think the time value of money of $1,500 in 2002 was just under $2,200 currently, so just kind of did a round up to the nearest $500.
Did you want me to elaborate?
Yeah, I didn't know
on
if you
the
had,
name?
yeah, if you wouldn't mind.
The way the ordinance is currently written is that we will award the scholarship in the month of April. And the scholarship applications are due in March, and once we receive them in March, then we have a panel of judges that review those. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer to get those judge results back. Also, when we would award it in the month of April, a lot of spring breaks take place during the council meetings, so people were not able to attend our meeting to receive their scholarship. So we just have been doing it in May, so it'd be nice if the ordinance reflected that.
And if we're able, assuming that there's no objections to the way this is written at the moment, we could have a first reading in March, second reading in April, and then actually present the revised scholarship this coming May.
Is there any other discussion on this topic? Kathy?
Sherry, am I wrong? When we started this has been, close to 15 years ago, probably? I understand the spring break thing, but wasn't there getting the money, before the kids get out, because seniors get out sooner than everybody else, and they could be out the middle of May, some of them, if we don't have any snow days. So I think, wasn't that a reason for not doing it in May?
I don't remember that because I didn't take part of it then.
Okay.
But I do know that, we have been doing it in May, and we've not had any problems getting the money to the senior before. They've been coming to the first council meeting in May, and then we give them their check. And then the mayor attends their senior awards banquet that month and also presents them with a proclamation. So they've been getting the checks in time.
Okay, so the The banquets are happening in May and not April?
Yeah, they're happening in May. They're
Okay.
later in May.
Okay, because I'm thinking 15 years ago, whatever it was. It seems to me that's why we decided on April, because we were missing banquets. They didn't get to be, sure, they were honored by the city to be coming here, but they weren't at their banquet, which is more important to me than coming here, is letting the school know that they got it and why they got it. Okay, I just, don't remember what I had for breakfast, but I was thinking that, okay.
This is kind of opening another bag of worms on this, but I have a question. So when we do the evaluating of the scholarships, do we evaluate whether they already have a full ride to college? Is that in there? Because one of the reasons I was saying that is if we postpone this till May, it gives us a better idea of if they have a full ride in college. And I didn't know if somebody that has a full ride still gets to get this $2,500 when somebody else maybe only has a partial scholarship that's close to that person would benefit more by getting this money.
Okay.
So I didn't know how that worked.
No, they don't look at whether they've received another scholarship or not. What they look at, it's like a community achievement scholarship. And so they look at 65% of their decision is based on the community achievement that they list, 25% is essay, and 10% is grade point average. That's what they're looking at.
Corinne, we never looked at what other monies they're getting. I mean, that was never part of it. We didn't look into that. Gee, if they get extra money, this is great. Most scholarships are based on grade point average and academics, where this one is community service. And even community service, my judges before this, when they looked at community service, it was fine that if you, let's say, went to St. Henry's, but you did all your community service at St. Henry's, okay? No, we want to look at your community service outside your school and outside the stuff that you had to do for the school, et cetera. We want to look at, what you did for another organization, St. Vincent de Paul, whatever it should be. And it just kind of worked that way, okay? When all my judges would submit their stuff, they'd say, well, that was really nice. They did 150 hours at St. Henry's. And my judges would say to me, but, somebody did 150 hours with St. Vincent de Paul is much harder than staying after school and doing stuff or being made to do stuff. So it just worked its way out with the judges. I'd ask for their input. Why'd you do this, or to try to get some idea if things should change within the scholarship. And the judges do it themselves. It kind of all works out. Maybe I gave somebody a 10 and somebody else gave them a 5, but. And when you averaged it out, it came that the right person always got it. And yeah, it was.
And we don't judge. We have 7 business owners in the community that do that. Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. All right. Any other items?
Yeah, I did have one other item. I think there was some confusion between Matt and I when we were talking about it, but the insurance premium tax, I know we're kind of up against some timelines, but I think there might be some interest in looking at other opportunities for, that are a little more broad scale. Still same amount of, I guess, financial targets for reducing taxes, but in this case, I think looking at the Duke Energy franchise and reducing that from potentially 3% to 2% as we move forward. And that's something that obviously I think equally impacts all businesses, all residences, all renters as they're paying, all those utility bills. So I was certainly a proponent of both of those, but I know that I'm much more aggressive in looking at those than some others. So with that, I'm certainly, happy to continue to support, reducing that insurance premium tax on healthcare insurance to 5%. But if we're gonna, if there's, broader support for looking at that energy franchise reduction, then I'm definitely in support of that.
So, Mr. Meyer, we're going to need to talk about the impact to the budget on that. Because if you look at the franchise fee, the estimates for 18-19, that's $665,000. So if you're dropping that from 3% to 2%, that's a $221,000 impact to the budget. That is extremely significant.
But that's, I mean, I would,
And these are just
based on what we
estimates.
estimated on the 5% insurance premium reduction, that's an additional $25,000 roughly over and above what we were looking at there.
But I don't know if we had even fully, talked about that. I don't know if we've fully talked about the $190,000 decrease to the budget.
No, but
Either.
I think we, I guess as council looks at this, and we think, and I'm looking at this at the last fiscal year, the $1.3 million surplus that we had. This is, slightly about 15% of that, reducing that amount. So,
But what we've done over the last 5 years is we've done small incremental changes to our property and our tangible. We've done small changes, and this is a very large, when you're talking about a property tax decrease, 1% is about $35,000.
yep.
So when you think about the drastic impact that this has, I don't know. I'm very concerned that this is too much of an impact.
Well, I mean, I don't see it as being, even that aggressive. I mean, I think it still allows, I guess our responsibility is to make sure we pass a budget that provides adequate funding for those resources. And if we were $1.3 million revenues in excess of expenses last fiscal year, then even by reducing $225,000, we're still providing, those funds to operate. And if that meant, that's without saying we're going to reduce, the run rate of roads, which is something I think, we should potentially look at. It's not cutting, fire budget or, police budget or cutting any of those budgets if we have that surplus level.
And I also want to go back to the insurance premium tax conversation, because we've been talking about this for many years, and it being at 10% has always been an issue. We've heard that several times, walking door to door, listening to citizens talk about the insurance premium tax, 10%. When you look at the surrounding cities in northern Kentucky, we are one of the highest. And I think we have an opportunity to start making, even if we do 0.25% decrease or a 0.5% decrease, it's still making some type of movement in the right direction. And, maybe we do some kind of combination of both. Maybe we take 0.25% for insurance premium and 0.5% for franchise, some type of mixture that would accommodate the need to decrease. Both of them should go down.
So Rebecca and I have been discussing this since we're finance, and so we didn't bring it up tonight because we don't have the numbers yet. So that's the first I heard about the 1%. So until we get the numbers, we wanted to look at everything before we decide. Right, yeah. So, like I said, that's first I've heard of that number, and that is significantly high. Yes, I agree. So, yeah, I think, when she has a chance, because I know she's busy, when she has a chance to give us the numbers of all the different areas, and then we discuss it, and then decide what to do from there.
I guess the only problem is we're on that time crunch
Right.
for the insurance premium tax. So we have to have it in by March 23rd, I believe, is the cutoff. So if we were to want to do some type of change, we'd have to have a first reading in March, and then have a second reading
At the council
at
meeting?
the committee meeting.
Do we know what the insurance premium, like if we did 0.25%, what that total is?
I sent out that spreadsheet. If we could, can we bring it up by any chance?
The 0.5%, it's estimated at 66,000. Does that sound right, Kara? Motor vehicle, 2018.
Okay.
Oh, just the motor vehicle.
Just motor vehicle. Which one, what are you,
I think they're talking about across the board
of both?
of everything. Of all lines, all insurance lines. Property, casualty, auto.
Yeah, I want to see those numbers. Make sure it's not too drastic. We don't want to have any cut in services, in my opinion.
Matt's going to pull it up. He has the spreadsheet.
Just from being somebody who's been around when times were rough, I'm very conservative about dropping things too much, which several of us here have been here when was tough, so.
Well, and I understand the want and the desire to decrease the franchise fee. So if we can meet somewhere in the middle and do a small decrease in both, I think that would be a step in the right direction. I strongly advise not just disregarding the insurance premium tax decrease. I mean, it's been talked about for far too long, even if it's just 0.25%.
No, I understand that, but I guess I'm curious as to how many more years we need million-dollar surpluses before we start, making more significant changes.
Well, I've talked to a ton of residents in the past couple of weeks, and all they care about, I said, if you have one thing you want the city to do, number one was roads, number two was sidewalks. So I think if we have a surplus, we need to just move the roads more and the sidewalks more.
Right,
Because
and
it was
we have.
huge, it was just
Yeah.
a huge amount of
But
people.
we also have to account for variable change.
Yeah,
So by running a surplus, it's not a bad thing, because we don't know what the pension liability is going to look like in 2 years, or,
Well, I don't
these
think we
other
know,
difficult-
we don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but we have, know where it's going to cap out at, right?
We know that it has the potential of up to 12% for the next 9 years, to increase 12%.
Yeah.
And considering they chose to go with 12% this year, the likelihood it's going to be 12 each year.
Yeah, but I guess, on the other hand, I think it's crazy that, we're going to talk about, not cutting $200,000 out of the budget, but spend $600,000 on a bathroom. I think, which is absolutely ridiculous, and to be on both sides of that argument. But no, but
Can we
Corinne,
talk
right now.
about that for a second?
But right now, it can happen, right? The money's in the budget. If the administration decides to go spend that money tomorrow on the bathrooms, that's their prerogative. There's nothing we can do about it unless we're going to amend the budget starting tonight
But Gary,
and pull that money out. No.
we came here to you with the design concept
Yep.
in the
I hear you.
spirit of transparency. So we didn't do what you're saying that we could have
But
done.
what I'm saying is, Corinne's saying that's not going to happen, and in reality, that can happen.
The design
I'm not saying that
concept was
you're going
brought
to do
here,
that, right?
But the design concept was brought here for discussion, okay? That's why we brought it here, to understand where you guys sit on what we need to do moving forward. So when we give a project to our Director of Public Works, he's going to go to the excellent level. He's going to
I
go to the
understand that.
exceptional level, and he's going to show us what we can possibly be and what we can possibly have. And it is then our responsibility to move down if that's what we want to do. We're not going to expect him to bring us not the best. We expect him to bring us the best, and if we want to take steps down from there, we can. Like I said originally, this was a design concept. This was not 100% moving forward. That's why we came here, and we presented it to you. Yeah, we could have just gone through with it, but we didn't. And that's why we didn't, because we wanted to hear from you all. It's exactly why we came here. Matt's brought up the documentation. So on this spreadsheet, it gives you the total collected, and this is percentage change for all categories. And the difference from the 10%, so 9.75%, you're going to see it's a 70,000 and change difference. 9.5, so that's decreasing it by 0.5%, it's 140. So even dropping the insurance premium tax by 1%, that's a $280,000 decrease. That's why I think there's some kind of combination. So Gary, if you want to do the franchise fee, I would say, drop it by 0.5% or a quarter, and drop the insurance premium by a quarter. And then with the combo, you're still sitting at about 180-ish is a difference in your budget. And then you're at least taking a step in the right direction in both.
So insurance was budgeted for this fiscal at $3.5 million? So 0.5% of that's going to be about $175,000? 0.5% would be a $175,000 reduction? That's just, I'm looking at the actual budget and then the actuals, insurance license fees were budgeted I'm going to round up $3.5 million for all lines.
If
So,
we did
so there is a difference here between, what was showing up here, total collected at the 2.8 versus the 3.3, roughly 3.3 is where it's averaged out over the past several fiscal years.
So if we did 0.5% on the franchise fee, that's
You're looking at the spreadsheet.
$110,840.
The spreadsheet isn't matching up to what we show in the budget as the actual collected from insurance license fees.
Because this is calendar year. That email that I had sent you, it had explained that there was a difference in the fiscal year versus the calendar year on the way that the state sends us this information. So we kind of have to we're making some estimates, definitely. However, it's relatively close. It's just the way the state sends it.
About
sends
80,
it to us.
85% of the actual over the fiscal year. 80. $87,000.
I guess my caution to the room would be I don't think you should set tonight what the number should be. I think that you should make some ideas, and then I think Kara probably needs to actually run the numbers so that we know exactly what it's going to cost, and we can have that certainly ready for a first reading at the next meeting. But I don't think you all should lock in a percentage, because the numbers could swing 40 or 50,000 depending on these guesses. Because I think you bring up a point on the fiscal year versus calendar year. So I just think Kara probably needs to.
Right, and the math's fairly simple looking at where the budget's.
So I think,
right.
If the goal is to reduce taxes 180,000, I'm just throwing a number out there. That's the number I'm hearing, and you want to split that evenly between the insurance premium tax and the franchise fee tax, then maybe Kara can just determine what that percentage is, and that we can have the ordinances ready for that percentage.
The only problem, and I've talked to Kara about this, with the insurance premium tax, it is extremely variable. It's not, do you want to explain that at all?
But the budget history says otherwise, right? I'll read the numbers. 16-17 actual, $3.3 million. 17-18 actual, $3.385 million. 18-19 budget, $3.3 million. 18-19 amended budget, $3.3 million. And then 19-20 amended budget, $3.493 million. To me, that's not very variable. That's fairly steady, fairly constant.
So I've been working with the Department of Revenue, and we've been looking at this, and we have had several people or several insurance companies that have paid us in the past but have not paid up. So we're actually reaching out to them to get some money. So it is a very, I mean, it's a high risk for fraud. I mean, it's always been a big thing. So the auditors always make sure that we have a lockbox, and every year when the auditors come in, what the state has on their report versus what we actually have, there's a big discrepancy. We actually show more money, and that's because it's all self-reported. So the insurance companies have to self-report, and it's up to us to find the money, which is what we've been working on, to contact the businesses. So it is variable in that way.
So there's potentially more than the 3.3.
Yeah, but it's until we sit there and, I mean, it's like finding a needle in the haystack.
Right, but it's still, but what we're seeing is probably directional, right? I mean, and
Possibly, but I mean, one year we could receive, a big chunk from a big plan, because I believe it's one of the plans is only on the first year of the premium, and I can't remember which one that is.
It's a life
That's life
insurance.
insurance.
Life insurance, yeah. So there's so much that comes to play.
But it's car and life and property and casualty, and it's all of it, yeah.
Tab. If you go to the first tab, there you go. Over across the top, it says casualty, fire, allied perils, health, inland marine, life, motor vehicle, and then other. So the life insurance is the one that you only pay the 10% tax on the first time you're paying your insurance premium, which also makes life very difficult to project.
No, we could be very
Right.
precise about it and look at just
Okay.
that line.
Yeah.
So
A motor
then-
vehicle is the largest amount. So if you were to do a larger percentage, it's going to take a large dollar amount out of that 3 million plus. When I was looking at this originally, I was paying attention to the life insurance, which only equates to about $59,000 of the total amount collected. I mean, how easy would it be to eliminate the insurance premium tax on life insurance? I mean, it's just, and then we don't have to worry about it. It's not something that we have to go out and potentially hunt down. It doesn't get charged. I mean, it's $59,000 out of the budget, it's done, and it would just be an easy one to knock off. Health insurance was the next. I've always thought it was kind of odd that we paid 10% on our health insurance. And it's a lower one. It could be chipped away pretty easily as well. And that's what drove me to get the actual breakdowns of the categories, to see how we could start chipping away at this in different ways. There's many ways that we could go about it, based on the category, or if you want to do a full across the board. There's all kinds of options. And it's just based on the appetite of council and how much we want to decrease the budget and how we think that it's going to impact our citizens. Yeah.
I would caution, just because we just have 1 year of data, I do think we need to look at several years. And I know 2019 calendar year, it should be available. We just haven't, with budget going on right now, we haven't narrowed and drove down in this.
So I do think we need to look at several years and not just 2018, because if there is a swing, I mean, we could be talking, but I want to make sure that we're precise as much as possible, because we do have pension costs and other, roads that we need to take care of, so.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement if we're going to look at a single insurance line. But if we're going to look at it across the board, then I don't know that doing all that analysis is going to do too much here. I mean, we know, we can see the numbers, at least where they've been, even if we've been underpaid. Worst thing that happens is we cut $200,000 out of the budget, and all of a sudden we start getting an additional $300,000 because people start paying up. I doubt there's too many people out there paying when they don't need to, although I know it does happen from time to time.
I'd also want to know, for example, with life insurance, who is paying that tax? Is it individuals who purchase life insurance, or is it large corporations? Because we've identified with the health insurance tax that it's not individuals or small business owners, it's large corporations. So if we're going to lower this in an effort to help residents, I want to make sure it's actually helping residents so that
Yeah,
we're not losing hundreds of thousands of dollars.
I
in
can
our
tell you that it
fund.
actually is, it is residents, because I've
With life
personally,
insurance?
yeah, I've
Okay.
personally talked about it on my policies in the
Okay.
past.
That's just,
It's been one of those things that I've always complained about vigorously with my insurance agents.
so those are just the questions that I want to ask with each one of these tax verticals, if we could just find out exactly who could benefit from the tax decrease. Because I know, I mean, obviously, we want to lower taxes if we can, but we have to make it as practical as possible in this decision, so.
With life insurance, with the age of our city and average age or whatever, I would think more people don't have life insurance than do. I mean, I don't have it, not anymore. Most people have it when their kids are growing up, and then they don't have it anymore. I mean, unless they have it through their job. But if we want to cover a big base of our people that live here, I don't think life insurance is the way to go.
I would agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Do it. 8 minutes. For what?
My main thing is I want to help as many people as we can, but I want it very conservative, because like I said, we've been here and when things have been bad, and I don't want to ever have to raise taxes again.
So maybe, Corinne, I know when we're thinking about that, I mean, what if we took that insurance, or the energy franchise to 2.5, which would, based on what we saw, would be $112,000 reduction, which is less than had been budgeted for insurance premium reduction over the past 2 years. If my math was right.
It's
Yeah.
approximately $110,848
There you go.
for 2.5. We might,
I think, Matt, we're soon going to be going to bid for the energy franchise, so we'd be able to work that in. And
Yeah, it would have to be both. That amount did count on
Yes,
electric?
yeah. It's gas and electric on this line item here.
From my understanding, you can change at any point for due, is that correct? I mean, it's just I'm sure it's an ordinance, or is that what it would be? Be an ordinance change, so maybe it can be lowered or raised with no issue on timing, which is different than,
But in the past, we've tied that up with the franchise agreement, right?
correct?
My only plea to you would be a 9.75 insurance premium, which then would drop it approximately $70,000. So that would be a total of $180,888 decrease to the budget. And that would be decreasing the insurance premium tax from 3% to 2.5, and then the franchise fee, from 3% to 2.5, and the insurance premium tax from 10 to 9.75.
Yeah, I mean, if we're trying to be a little more conservative, I'd, say, let's just do the Yeah, well, no, not the quarter. I was thinking, just the energy franchise. And then if we wanted to just to run a lot of numbers on the insurance premium tax, we can certainly do that. I know we're kind of limited on time, right? And one of the things I have a concern about is, and one of the reasons that I made a motion to move this budget amendment to the committee meeting, because the first time that we were actually hearing or seeing or talking about the budget amendment was at a council meeting. And we, in theory, should have discussed every ordinance that's coming before us before we're asked to have a first reading on it. Because typically by that point, we're often told that just a first reading, we don't vote on it, but then we get to the second reading, it's too late to make changes to it. So,
I
would be.
100% disagree with that. The council can make any kind of floor amendment they want at a second reading, and you have a month to get a hold of Mr. Kramer or myself for any changes for that floor amendment. So I think
And then have another first reading?
no. I think as
Jack,
long as
if you go back and look at the recordings, I guarantee you'll find where you told me otherwise, specifically around this.
if it's a substantive change, it's best practice to have another first reading.
Okay. I won't, I'm not going to argue with you on it right now.
And just so you know, I'm old. We got life insurance, wouldn't do without life insurance. The kids are going to get it. They're going to pay all the funeral bills. They're going to pay off all the bills. Would never go without life insurance. I would never go without life insurance. Never, ever, ever. Skidmores have it too.
Okay. So from what I'm hearing from Mr. Meyer, are there the majority of you in agreement that only doing the 2.5 for the franchise fee? Okay, so no increase, no decrease to the insurance premium tax.
When we're not in budget, when things are like over the summer, then CARE has some time to go through a couple years of insurance premiums, and then we can figure out next year to tackle going down on the car insurance
And maybe you
with a
can-
lot more notice.
Right, and maybe we continue to do that research, and rather than attack or move the needle just a tiny bit on property taxes, that we take that approach with it. I mean, we could certainly continue to bring down property taxes, but I know that that's not a significant mover on an individual's.
What's the trigger date of the franchise fee? July 1st?
I would imagine it would be.
Well, I don't think it has to be. That's why, you want it July 1st?
Yeah, but we've already projected as revenues for this budget, so July 1st would be the earliest.
But we could,
My opinion.
yeah. But, we could certainly look at I think at the earliest we're doing it, if we did it now, it's May 1st, so May, June, that would essentially cut out that revenue from this cycle year, but you've also baked in a 0.25% insurance premium tax reduction in this budget cycle anyway, so, which we didn't do, right? So,
But I think it's a
wash.
What I don't know is our timing of notice and how long it'll take for Duke and Owen to recognize the difference. I don't know that. There might be some timing to that. I don't think it's just a switch you turn off, you know what I mean?
Yep.
I'll get that by the end of the week, though. I don't think that'll be a hard answer for Duke to give us. Owen might be different. They're a little harder to get a hold of.
But that means we have to go to bid first, is that right?
Let me double check.
Okay.
I just from talking to other cities, I don't believe so. I think it's just depending on how it's written, I think it's just a change to the franchise fee. But I should have had that by the end of the week, next week by the latest.
Okay, any other questions, comments, issues, items for the agenda? Seeing none, I close this meeting. Have a good night.